Hey guys, Sue's here. Welcome back to another Keto Dinner Ideas video. If you're new to our channel, we make these every single week and we try to cover 4 different keto recipes each week to give you a little inspiration to get in the kitchen and get your keto meal prep and keto cooking on. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and join our crew, and let's get into the video. First up this week, we made this awesome slow cooker jerk chicken is what they called it. I don't think it really tasted like jerk chicken, but it tasted good. So to start with, in a big bowl, I am putting together our seasoning for this. Just 4 teaspoons of salt. I was skeptical, but go with it. 4 teaspoons of paprika, 1 teaspoon of cayenne pepper for heat, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, 2 teaspoons of thyme, 2 teaspoons of white pepper, 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, and 1 teaspoon of black pepper. I'm just whisking this all together, and this is going to be our rub for our chicken. Now for our chicken, I'm using a pack of drumsticks and a pack of wings. I think each of these are like 1.5 pounds. It's like 5 or 6 drumsticks and 12 wings. And I'm just adding all of those straight to my rub and jostling them around and making sure they're all fully coated. Now I'm adding them to my crock pot. I'm using a big oval crock pot. I'm not sure how many quarts this is. I'll try to link the one that I used down below. And I'm just piling all of my chicken in there, popping the lid on, and I am cooking this on low for, I think I did about 6 to 8 hours on it. Here's what it looks like when it comes out, when it's done. Minus the steam, and here it is plated up. I just served it with a little bit of steamed long stem petite green beans, and I put a little bit of that sauce broth from the chicken over those. This was excellent. My husband's always a fan anytime I cook chicken, and especially dark meat. I cooked the wings for me. Super easy, don't even have to really think about it too hard, and super keto friendly. Next up, we made this awesome keto lasagna, a white keto lasagna, and to start with, we made some homemade Alfredo sauce. You could skip this part if you're going to use jarred sauce, but I couldn't find any that I liked, so I'm just making my own. So to a large saucepan over medium heat, I added a tablespoon of butter, melted it, and I'm adding 3 heaping teaspoons of minced garlic and whisking those around until they're nice and fragrant. To that, I'm adding 1.5 cups of heavy whipping cream and whisking that in before slowly adding in 1/2 cup of grated Parmesan cheese. And I do still just have this on medium heat. You can see I'm bringing it up. It's starting to bubble. And I'm whisking that in really well. I'm adding 1/4 teaspoon sea salt and 1/4 teaspoon ground black pepper. Whisking that in too. Now I'm sticking that on another burner, and I'm going to let it continue to simmer until it reduces and thickens. And in a large saute pan over medium heat, I am adding 1 pound of ground turkey. You could use ground chicken, or you could even make this with beef or pork if you prefer. Now once that is browned and our sauce that was simmering has thickened, I'm just going to drain that turkey and add it straight to our Alfredo sauce. And I'm just mixing that in. Now the recipe for this white lasagna calls for 16 ounces of Alfredo sauce. I'm only using 1.5 cups of Alfredo sauce, but that worked just fine for me. And once I have that mixed together over in a separate dish, I'm taking 2 cups of ricotta cheese. Now make sure you check your carbs carefully on ricotta. My husband has accidentally bought some in the past that had like 8 grams of carbs for 1/4 cup. This one only has 3. Just get the lowest one you can find. To that I'm adding 1 egg, only 1/4 teaspoon salt, as I've already added salt to my Alfredo sauce, 1 teaspoon of granulated onion powder, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and then I'm just taking a whisk and mixing that together really, really well. Sticking that to the side. I have some spinach here. This is a 12-ounce container of frozen spinach. I just defrosted, drained it, wrapped paper towels around it, and really squeezed the heck out of it. Then I'm taking a 9 by 13 baking dish, and I'm just going to go ahead and put 1 layer of my meat on that, and then half of my ricotta, so half of my meat, half my ricotta mixture, using a spatula to spread that out. I'm going to crumble up half of my spinach and put it on top next, and then adding 1/2 cup of shredded mozzarella cheese on top of that. And then we're just going to repeat this whole process over again by putting another layer of our meat, the rest of our meat, the rest of our ricotta, the rest of our spinach, and our last cup of shredded mozzarella cheese. And then I'm popping this whole thing into a 350-degree oven for 40 minutes uncovered. Here's what it looks like when it came out. I love when the edges get nice and brown and crunchy. This was absolutely delicious. My husband ate it all week and it was the perfect keto lunch for him as he is working from home right now. Next up, I have an original recipe for you. This is a keto instant pot Dijon cream pork chop recipe. So to start with, I'm taking 4 center cut loin chops. These are boneless and these are about a half to an inch thick each. And I'm just sprinkling some salt and pepper on this side, and I'm gonna flip them over and do the other side as well. Sticking those to the side, grabbing my Instant Pot and cutting it onto saute. I'm adding a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil and a tablespoon of butter. And once that's nice and melted and bubbly, I'm just gonna add my pork loin chops straight to it. And I'm gonna sear these for just a couple minutes on each side. I'm not worried about getting these cooked all the way through right now, just about getting a nice sear to kind of lock in that flavor. After they're seared on both sides, I'm removing them to a separate dish. And then I'm adding a 1/4 cup of really finely chopped onion, cooking that around until it got softened and nice and brown. And then I'm cutting off my Instant Pot and adding a 1/2 cup of chicken broth and just scraping all of the bits off of the bottom of the Instant Pot to deglaze it. To that, I'm adding a 1/4 cup of dry white cooking wine, mixing that in before adding a 1/2 cup of heavy cream and a tablespoon of Dijon mustard, a 1/4 teaspoon sea salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon ground white pepper. And I'm gonna mix this in really well and add my chops back to the Instant Pot. And as I'm adding them, you can see I'm kind of turning them in the sauce to make sure they are coated on both sides. And then I'm gonna pop the lid on this and cook it on high pressure for 30 minutes. And I did let it naturally release for about 20 minutes after it was done. And this is what they look like. You can see my pork is cooked all the way through and nice and tender, but we need to thicken up our cream sauce now. So I'm just removing the pork to a separate clean dish. I'm gonna cut my Instant Pot back onto the saute function. And then I am taking a 1/2 teaspoon of xanthan gum. I just like to sprinkle it across the top while it comes up to temperature. You can see it's nice and bubbling there. And then I'm just gonna stir this and continue cooking it until my sauce starts to thicken, which doesn't take very long. You can tell when it's getting there because when you stir it, it'll leave little marks like that in your sauce. And when it does, I'm just cutting the heat off and popping some cauliflower rice in the microwave to go ahead and steam it. And here it is plated up. Now for my cauliflower rice, I just steamed it in the microwave, added some butter, some salt, and a heavy-hand amount of black pepper, put a little of my Dijon cream on top of the cauliflower rice, one of my pork chops, and a little bit more of the cream on top of that, and it's just topped with a tiny bit of parsley. This was so good, like comfort food at its best. Last up this week, one more original recipe from me. This is my version of a keto chicken divan. My husband said I should call it keto chicken Suzan, so that's up for debate if we'll do that or not, but super easy. So in a large saucepan over medium heat, I'm melting 1 tablespoon of butter, adding a heaping teaspoon of minced garlic to that, whisking that around until it's nice and fragrant, making sure not to burn it. To that, I'm adding 4 ounces, just 1/2 a block of cream cheese, kind of whisking it around there to help it melt before adding a 1/2 cup of sour cream and a 1/2 cup of heavy cream. And then I'm just going to use my spoon to break apart the rest of that cream cheese so it will melt quicker before getting back in there with my whisk and just continually whisking and stirring this until everything is melted and combined and nice and creamy. Now once it is, I'm using rotisserie chicken seasoning blend for this recipe. If you don't have that, it's just salt, onion powder, garlic powder, and paprika. But I'm using a tablespoon of this rotisserie chicken seasoning, and because it doesn't have pepper in it, I'm also adding a 1/4 teaspoon ground black pepper to that and whisking that in. To that, I'm adding a 1/4 cup chicken broth. And I'm gonna whisk that in and then bring this up to a bubbling heavy simmer there before cutting the heat back down and adding a 1/4 cup of shredded Parmesan cheese, whisking that all together until it's nice and thick. To this, I'm adding a pound of broccoli florets that I steamed in the microwave just lightly, just enough to get the excess moisture out of them. And these are really big, beautiful broccoli florets, so I am breaking them apart just a little with my spoon. You could chop these up if you wanted them finer, but I wasn't too worried about it. To that, I am adding a cup of extra sharp shredded cheese, And I do have my heat off at this point, and I am just mixing that really well before adding in our chicken. Now, for chicken, I'm adding 3 cups shredded chicken, and if you've been watching me, you've probably seen me do this before. I always just cook my chicken in the Instant Pot for like a half an hour, and then when it gets done, I use an electric mixer to shred it. It takes like 5 minutes to shred it that way, and that is how I did this. And then using a lot of elbow grease to mix this thick mixture together. We're just gonna keep turning and tossing it all until everything is fully coated with the creamy cheese sauce. Now taking an oval casserole dish, I think this is a 2 or 3 quart one. I'm just going to pour all of that mixture into it, kind of even it out on top. Top it with 1 more cup of extra sharp shredded cheese and pop this into a 350-degree oven for 30 minutes. And here's what it looks like when it comes out. And I just have to tell you, as a child of the 80s, this totally reminds me of all of those quick weeknight casseroles that they would just magically throw together for dinner. This was super delicious. Very flavorful, very, very happy with how this turned out. Let me know if you try it. Tag me on Instagram. We're trying to spend more time over there. The goal is to give you more behind the scenes footage if you're interested in us or our family, but just haven't been doing too good of a job at it. Now that we're moving more towards trying to incorporate more original recipes, I would love it if you would just tag us over at Susan the Crew on Instagram anytime you make one. I'd love to see how your creations turn out. That's it for this week's Keto Dinner Ideas video. Please make sure you tune in next week, same time on Sunday, for another round of dinner motivation. Share this video with your friends, please. Anybody you know that's trying to follow a low carb diet or live a keto lifestyle. And until then, bye guys.